Okay, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Carl Jung and his theory of analytical psychology. Okay, just a brief overview of what analytical psychology, Jung's theory, is about. Basically, a core component of his theory is the existence of what he called the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is kind of like an unconscious, a part of our personality that's deep within us, but it's something that's shared across all human beings. So that's why it's called the collective unconscious. And in this collective unconscious, there are what he called archetypes, which are various kinds of symbols, universal symbols that exist in this collective unconscious. And again, exists across all of humanity. And we'll talk about what some of those archetypes are in a little bit. Another aspect of Jung's theory is the idea of these opposing forces, these opposites that are all within us. You know, you've heard about some people having a masculine side and a feminine side. Well, really, that comes from Jung's theory. So the various kind of forces are, for example, introversion and extroversion. Introversion referring to looking inward, and extroversion meaning looking outward. Not quite the same as when we think about introverted, extroverted, but similar. Male, female, obviously, the masculine and the feminine. The conscious and the unconscious, or the conscious is what we're consciously aware of what we think about at the moment. The unconscious, what is deep within us, and also the rational and irrational. So these opposing forces, they're existing within all of us, and we'll talk more about that. Finally, the concept of self-realization is an important aspect of Jung's theory. This is a state where if you reach this point, it's the idea that you can have balance between all of these opposing forces. So the psychologically healthy person is self-realized, and that they've achieved that balance. A little bit of background about Jung himself. Born in Switzerland, 1875. His mother's family had a little bit of a mystic background, which kind of also, I think, bleeds into his theory. He wanted to become a physician, and Freud and Jung were very close. Jung was younger, very brilliant, and Freud really, so they had a really close relationship. However, as Jung developed his theory, he and Freud kind of had a falling apart. So he, again, and his approach that he formed was called analytical psychology. Let's say one woman was not enough for him. He had a long-term affair with another woman, but according to Jung, that is normal and reasonable because, again, the idea of opposites. In other words, the woman his wife and the other woman, so to speak, were kind of like represented, satisfying opposite aspects of him. At least that's how he could certainly justify it. And he died in 1961. But anyway, here I have a link here to a website that I believe the International Association of Analytical Psychology. And here it is. If you wanted to explore this, information about it, they have conferences and whatnot. So there are a lot of people who are interested in analytical psychology. Recognize also that if you remember that personality test that you took in the first module that had to deal with identifying your personality type, well, that really comes from Jung's theory. The Myers-Briggs test is based on Jung's theory. Remember those various opposite components of our personality. Okay, so let's talk about the conscious and the unconscious, according to this theory. So the conscious, this is the ego. Again, there's a lot of similarity here with Freud's theory, the idea of the ego. So these are the psychic images sensed by the ego. That represents the conscious. That's the center of your consciousness, but not the core of your personality. So really, your unconscious self is quite important as well. Now, everybody has a personal unconscious, which are your various repressed memories, which is similar to what we've talked about when talking about Freud. Freud's concept of the unconscious is basically the same thing as Jung's concept of the personal unconscious. Okay, and in your personal unconscious, you may develop complexes where kind of like so the idea of like a mother complex, for example. So images and issues surrounding your relationship with your mother would be considered a complex if there's this strong association regarding that particular concept. But now the collective unconscious is really what distinguishes Jung's theory and really what he emphasizes a lot. And these are the again inherited from our ancestors. And Freud had a concept similar to this called phylogenetic endowment. Again, this is kind of like almost like your biological basis. If you think about a link with evolutionary theory, what has evolved? Well, the collective unconscious has essentially evolved, but it's within all of us these various images, thoughts, feelings, whatnot, that are shared across all of humanity. Okay? And we have various life experiences that trigger images and whatnot from our collective unconscious. There are times, for example, where a man's feminine side might come out, or something like that. Where somebody can sometimes be a hero. Maybe a shy, quiet person might a circumstance might make that person become a hero. But the hero image is one of those archetypes that comes from the collective unconscious. So it's something within all of us. Okay? So those archetypes are those special, emotionally toned images that are present across all of humanity. And again, certain kinds of life experiences lead us to draw upon certain types of archetypes. Again, these archetypes that exist within all of us. And they might come out in our dreams, in our fantasies, and so on. So here are some of the archetypes that exist in our collective unconscious according to Jung. There is the persona, the shadow, the anima, the animus, the great mother, the wise old man, the hero, as I mentioned before, and of course the self. And we'll get to all, and we'll talk a little bit about all of these. Okay, the persona is the image that we present to others. This is what we present to the world, our outer self. As all of you know, we are presenting an image of who we are to others. But that image of ourselves is really only part of who we are. What would we be like if everything we were was what we presented to ourselves and there was nothing behind this particular mask that we put upon? And that's what that persona is. The persona is kind of like a mask, isn't it? We put it on, and this is what we are portraying to the world around us. So the problem with identifying too much with that is you're not paying attention to what's going on inside of you. And with the concept of self-realization, achieving balance, you're too much concerned about, how the image you're presenting to others rather than who you are as a whole person. And these archetypes are part of the whole person that you are. Second archetype we'll talk about is the shadow, the dark side of our personality. These are aspects of ourselves that we wish to hide from ourselves and from others. This is the part of our personality we're very uncomfortable with. Sometimes this dark side comes out when we don't want it to. Sometimes it can get ourselves into trouble. If any of you are fans of the singer Billy Joel, there's a song he does called "The Stranger." So if you take a listen to the song and listen to the lyrics, you'll see, I believe, that in some ways there's some connection there. The concept of the stranger from Billy Joel's song resembles a lot Jung's concept of the shadow. The anima is the feminine in all of us. This is the man's feminine side comes out in the anima. And this shapes our relation. Me being a man shapes my relationship with women, this feminine side that comes out. The idea is that you have irrational moods and feelings, presumably, that come about. And these, at least from Jung's point of view, stem from the anima, the feminine within all of us. On the other hand, the animus, the woman's masculine side, involves thinking and reasoning, rational thought. And if a woman's animus comes out, the idea is that, women it's almost like pretending to think logically, but it's kind of irrational thinking. But I think that you could probably say, for both Freud and Jung, is that they kind of followed various kinds of gender stereotypes about what males and females are like. That a woman can't be logical, and that a woman is overrun with her emotions and so on, and that the men are the more logical, rational people. I think that it's kind of stereotypical beliefs, but we also have to remember the eras in which both Freud and Jung were growing up. This is like the late 1800s, early 1900s, so it's understandable that they may have a little bit of a stereotype belief. Nevertheless, I think that we can recognize that there are certain differences between males and females, and that it seems reasonable that to some degree men can maybe reveal a more sensitive, nurturing side, which we would tend to associate with being female, and that women might somehow, again, maybe kind of tone down emotion sometimes and just be logical, rational thinking at some point, to kind of the so-called masculine side. So anyway, it's an interesting idea. Another archetype is the Great Mother, and this comes from the idea that about giving birth and creation. And so the concept of mother exists within all of us, obviously particularly women, but within all of us. And the Great Mother if you think like Mother Nature, has a great deal of power. Okay, so in other words, it's nurturing, it's creation, fertility, nourishment, caring, but it's also power and destruction. The idea, the old expression, I put you into this world, I can put you out too. So it's again, it's that powerful mother image. And again, if you're thinking about archetypes, about when would such a situation come up, well, imagine I know that some of my students may be mothers, and the students who, when you become a parent, when you become a mom, when you give birth, that is a moment in which this archetype is coming straight to the forefront. You are not only a mother to your child, but you are taking on the image of the mother, which is a universal idea. A concept of being a mother is something you share with all other mothers all around the world at that moment when you are having your baby. Okay? So that would be the example of the archetype, coming from the collective unconscious, revealing itself in that situation. Another archetype is called the wise old man. This is the archetype representing wisdom and meaning. And obviously this is very important. Sometimes you need to call upon this particular archetype when you have to make when you have to be thinking about a very complicated issue, thinking about the meaning of life, stuff like that. This is, where the archetype would reveal itself. However, if you identify too much with this particular archetype, you may sound like you're just pontificating all the time without, just blah, 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 blah. And, may resemble some of the professors that you have had experience with. Another archetype is the hero. This is what it sounds like. The powerful, godlike person who fights evil, okay? And a classic example of a hero is, of course, Superman, right? The thing about the hero, according to Jung, is that every hero has a tragic flaw. In every hero, there's one weakness. And if any of you know anything about Superman, you know Superman's tragic flaw. You know what Superman's weakness is. And of course, his weakness is kryptonite. And kryptonite makes him powerless. Well, according to, Jung's theory came about before Superman came out, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Superman character, the creator of Superman, had at least a little bit of Jung in mind in developing his character. And the idea is that we have a hero as well within all of us that also can have a tragic flaw. But the thing about the hero is the hero can help us conquer our dark side. So we have our shadow, right? Which can be kind of scary, but we also have the hero that can fight off that shadow within us, and we can come out on top. Finally, the last archetype is the archetype of all archetypes. This is the self. This is where the person achieves the balance. And this is where we are all moving toward this, balancing all of those opposing forces, balancing all of the different archetypes. This is when you're developing your true realized self. So it may be a lifelong goal to try to get that realized self, the ideal personality. And this is kind of where the mysticism comes in when it comes to Jung. Jung was very much intrigued with the concept of a mandala symbol. And the mandala is the perfect symbol of what a realized self looks like. And what is a mandala, you might ask? Well, let's click on this link and find out. Good old Wikipedia. See this picture over here? This represents a mandala. And notice here, you have here this very complex image, but it has that great symmetry, right? This is a symmetrical image, balance on all sides here. And if you wanted to do a Google image search of a mandala, you'll find some great, beautiful images of mandalas here. You see that? And do you see how they all have that balance that perfection, and that is the idea of what the idealized self would be. Okay. Look at this beautiful mandala here. This one looks like it's made out of sand. So anyway, you get the idea. So I think as you can kind of understand that the fully realized self represents that mandala.